All right, welcome everyone. This is EXOS Eats. I'm Coach Matt. This is our third presentation. Thank you so much for joining me today. Hopefully, this is not your first time here. If it is, doesn't matter. Welcome. So today we're making a little special dish. We're making a dish focused on something that we haven't talked a lot about in terms of nutrition here at EXOS. If you are a familiar or a regular with Friday Morning Fuel, we haven't done fish very much. So we're going to get into some salmon here today, but kind of give you a little bit of insight in fish in general. Today's kind of topic for today, we last several weeks we've been talking about fueling for performance based on the lifestyle that you live. So if you are here today, then there's a good chance that you may live a either less active lifestyle or you are trying to lose some weight. Okay, in the last couple of weeks that we've talked about moderately active lifestyles, very active lifestyles. So we're going to try to round that out, make sure we are inclusive of everyone here in the kitchen. So, because if anything, eating is for everyone, right? So the way that we eat can be for everyone as well, and we'll kind of get into that today. So if you're here the last couple of weeks, kind of work the same. We'll do a little cooking, we'll do a little presenting, we'll do a little education. But at any time during this presentation, kind of walk through, you have any questions, if you need some more information, please put it in the chat. Emma's in the chat and she will kind of get that out to me. Or if you want to just kind of come over the speaker and call it out, I'm here for you. So I want this to be a very kind of two-way presentation here, interactive experience. That's the word we're looking for. So if you have anything, please feel free to ask. Or if you want anything specifically covered, definitely let me know. So if you're cooking at home with me, then hopefully you've gathered all your ingredients and you got everything you need. I have gone ahead and preheated my oven. So if you're cooking along, go ahead and preheat your oven 400 degrees. And I'm going to go ahead and preheat a pan as well. We're going to do a little bit of prep work and then we'll kind of go on with it. So I am actually going to kind of change the recipe up a little bit from the way that it was listed. Today I'm actually going to start with the salmon and just kind of let that cook as we make everything else. Before, salmon's sometimes a little temperamental, so we need to make sure that kind of take care of that first. It's the star of the dish. But kind of run through everything. We got lots of herbs and spices. We got a wonderful, beautiful mango. This is very large. I think we did mango last time, but mango's great. We've got some scallions, which are actually green onions. So if you're confused what a scallion, what a green onion is, literally the exact same thing. We've got a whole lime. We have no agave, but we do have some honey. So interesting thing about agave and honey, they're very similar in structure, in taste and profile and everything like that. But here in this household, we typically just use honey. It's got a bit of a better nutritional value, and it's a little bit more natural than agave in terms of like the raw, unfiltered honey. So if you have the choice, I'd recommend going for honey. But if you want both, they both have their place in cooking, in the kitchen, etc., etc. We've got our greens, a little off camera. We've got a big, lovely head of, I don't know if it's a head, it's a bunch of kale. And then we've got some cabbage and carrots. This is literally just like the little coleslaw prepackaged thing. It's a lot easier for us to use that. So we're going to use that. So pan is cooking. We've got a little olive oil. We're going to get a nice little coat on there. Show you this lovely bit of salmon. I want this pan really, really hot. So we're going to sear the top side of the salmon before we pop it into the oven. But we're going to make sure that the pan is hot enough to handle that. So we've got our lovely, beautiful salmon breast here. I don't know, fillet. Wow, what a lovely man. So the thing about salmon, I will say, not necessarily for everyone. That's fine. Fish in general, not necessarily for everyone, which is fine. But those who are for fish, let's talk a little bit about fish. I'm going to season this with some homemade Mexican spice blend that I have here. What is all in here? I'm not sure. There's oregano, there's some parsley, there's a little bit of cumin, some ginger, onion, salt. I'm going to get a nice healthy coating on this bad boy. Not going to use all this. This is I made for several weeks. So we're gonna get that coated. So I hope my pan is big enough. You know, I'm just realizing this is a big hunk of salmon I have here, but we'll get our best on this. I might end up just slicing a piece of this off and making the rest of it later. So actually, let's go ahead and do that. I want to cut off a bit. So looking at serving size of fish, we are looking about 3 to 4 ounces. I'm going to go ahead and tell you that I will honestly cut off here closer to 6, just because I'm a growing boy and I need the extra protein. So I had a little light on protein for the lunch. There we go. So we've got one good slice of salmon right there. Cool. So you can weigh that out if you really want to. I'm not going to. But as we're getting that, check the pan, make sure we're still looking good in the heat factor. So I am going to sear this with the skin side up. So actually all the spices that we just put on it, it is then going to kind of melt into the salmon. Why do we put more olive oil on here when salmon is already a pretty fatty fish? The reason is because I don't want it to stick to the pan. There's a good chance this pan is a little bit older. Its non-stick is not quite as good as it used to. So we're going to go right here. Should get a nice good sizzle. Not as nice as I wanted, but it's there. We're doing it. So while that's sizzling away for 3 to 4 minutes, I'm going to raise my voice so we can talk over it. But I want to talk a little bit about farm raised versus wild caught salmon, fish, whatever you choose. I'm going to pop this back in the fridge when we're done. The bottom line here is that we want to go wild caught whenever possible. So I will say, when I went to Whole Foods to grab some salmon today, they had 2 options. They had farm raised and they had wild caught. The issue is that this is a farm raised fish. The only issue is that the wild caught was king salmon, which that means nothing to you. It was $35 a pound. So that was a little bit more than I was looking to spend on some salmon. But so the moral of this story is, wild caught when you can, farm raised when you can't do that. So farm raised fish, definitely better than no fish. Okay, wild caught, farm raised, no fish. Okay, salmon specifically, wonderful source of omega-3 omega-3 fats. Really good for inflammation for your joints. Kind of keep everything nice and smooth and moving. So if salmon is not a part of your diet, would recommend trying to get it once a week with a little bit of fish. A little bit of that fattier fish would be ideal. So lots of benefits with fish in general. Like I said, wild caught is going to be a lot better for you in terms of lower chances of disease, lower chances of chemicals, of preservatives, things like that in them. Just a healthier diet overall. I mean, it's the same idea. It's like grass-fed or pasture-raised beef or chicken, anything like that. So wild caught, way to go. I think I've berated that point enough. We're going to give this another minute or 2. I'm going to crank that heat. I usually like to, if you kind of look around the sides, you start getting, in this case, the very bottom kind of edge starts turning color, and that's kind of when I have a good idea that it is at the right temperature, ready to flip and pop into the oven. So I'm giving this my full attention as of right now. Well, again, we'll give this about 30 more seconds. I'm going to flip it over and then we'll put it into the oven. Depending on your cut of fish, so this one is a little bit thicker. We do want to make sure that we cook all the way through. And so it's going to be somewhere around 15 minutes, 12, 13 to 15 minutes or so. So I'm liking how that's looking. All right, it's going to lift right off of there. So as you can see, we've got a nice little char on the top, which is perfect, which is what we want. We're going to go ahead and take this oven-safe pan, very important, and put that into our preheated oven. All right, Alexa, set a timer for 14 minutes.
14 minutes.
Sorry for all those at home that may have just got a timer set, but there you go. Cool, so we've got a nice large bowl. We're going to go ahead and start making our salad. So we're going to start, we'll start with the mango. If you were here last week, we talked a lot about, I need a new knife. We talked a lot about vegetables, right? Fruits and vegetables, produce in general. Anything that you eat the skin of, you should wash, all right? Mango, I'm not going to eat the outside of the skin, but this has been rinsed anyways, so it doesn't hurt. Obviously, if you cut fish with a knife, don't then use that for your produce. So switch out knives. This is a little bit of an older mango, I won't lie to you, so it's got a little bruising on it, so we're not going to necessarily use this whole thing, but if you were here the other week, we talked about how to cut a mango. You kind of take the long sides of that, cut that along those long sides, kind of get two halves. Remember, the core of a mango is like a rectangular prism. So we kind of got a little craftiness to do here on mango cutting. So I'm going to cut the skin off the core. I'm going to cut this big old bruised piece off of that as well. I don't want that. And then we're going to salvage our little bit of fresh fruit. So the mangoes, the riper they are, the more the juicier, the more flavorful I find them. So I like to have them sit just a bit. If you like the really, really fresh one, hey, that's your prerogative. You can go for that. So we're going to get this a nice little cube, just little pieces. We're going to toss that to the side real quick. We're not going to quite throw this in the bowl. Actually, yeah, I guess we could. We'll go ahead. We'll try to save as much of that juice as possible. Toss that in the bowl. So we're going to use the mango and everything to kind of get to that kale. I'm going to hedgehog this mango half. So as you are kind of following along, again, if you have any questions that do come up, please let me know. I know that I am sometimes a little sporadic in these movements. Kind of go by feel on these recipes, so not all the time is it directly as listed. You know, it's nice to have a guide, but I've made this meal who knows how many times, so we're just kind of going by feeling at this point. So we're going to pop some mangoes into the bowl here. Like I said, trying to get as much of that juice as possible because I will kind of flavor the kale with that. So a nice little bonus of some extra ripe mango. And we're just not going to use the bruised pieces. So this one might got a fight with the apples in the fruit bowl. So look at that. We've got one whole mango here. I think the recipe calls for less than a whole mango, but it's okay. I'm making this for two people. I want to clarify that as well. The salmon, I'm just making the one, but the salad I'm going to go ahead and prep for my wife for dinner tonight. Oh, that's one thing I wanted to kind of point out. If if anybody is not a big fan of fish in the office, I will have to say that this whole being at home thing has been really nice for the sake of you can make fresh fish and nobody's going to complain about it. You don't have to reheat it. So that's why I'm only making half of it, so I don't have to reheat it. Cool. Mangoes are in the bowl, scallions / green peppers or green onions. We're going to get in here as well. We're going to pretty much go all the way down here, making very small little slices. Get those onions. Again, I don't know if I explicitly stated this, but we are now making the salad for our meal this evening, this afternoon, whatever it may be. I kind of want to revisit that claw grip if you have missed a week or two here. So if you take your fingers, kind of tuck them under, you make this kind of flat little plane right here. So you're holding the produce with your fingertips, but the knuckles kind of jutted forward. You have the knife resting on there, so you're never actually getting anything underneath the blade. So you're able to hold your produce down while still being efficient in your cutting. So I highly recommend practicing that. It's very much a skill that takes repetition. So it makes cooking a lot more efficient, a lot safer as well, which is very important. So as we finish chopping up these two little scallions, two little rapscallions, popping that all in there. Great. Got a little extra on this one. Find it's interesting, the white parts and the green parts of the green onion have a little different flavor, definitely a little different texture. Since we are using that as in the salad, we're not really cooking anything, but normally you would kind of use the green onions as a topping, a little flair, a little pizzazz. Not going to be quite us today. But great, all that's in there. We are going to go for our lime. We're going to go half a lime in here to get a little massage on there as we squeeze that lime juice in there. All right. As much of that in there as we can. We'll save that other half of the lime for later. My hands are disgusting. All that mango. All right. So now we kind of get to the main bulk of the salad here. So kale, I know not everybody's favorite, but it is quite a superfood. So I highly recommend, if you haven't had kale, make this meal, because this is a great way to prep that kale. If you never used kale before, there's many different kinds of kale. This is just your kind of traditional green kale. It's got a stem on the backside. You normally don't want to eat that part, so we're really just gonna kind of pull that stem away from the leaves and toss those leaves right in. I'm gonna get a little extra rip up there just so they stay in bite-sized pieces. Don't want a giant pieces of kale in our mouth there. All right, so we're just gonna go through that. And if you are pretty opposed to kale, I'll ask you why. Why are you opposed to kale? But you could certainly use spinach, you could use lettuce, you can use whatever you want to in this particular meal. We're just looking for some greens. So as we kind of talk about today being those a little bit less active. The last few weeks we've talked about kind of balancing our carbs, our protein, and our produce. So this is kind of that last piece of that puzzle. Quick side note, this kale, again, wash your produce. So with our very active population, if you remember from last week, Emma did a wonderful job kind of presenting the carb ratio for those very active folks. So lots of carbs means lots of fuel, lots of fuel for that fire to burn. through our activity. Okay, I'm gonna make like half of this bunch because the secret of kale is massaging it. All right, so get your fingies ready. We're gonna get down and deep into this. I know this looks like a lot of kale, but remember that this is going to end up being pretty much half of your plate today. So those being aiming to lose weight or a little less active, we don't need quite as many carbs as someone who is very regular high intensity activity. They're endurance runners, bikers, hikers, anything like that. Not always performing, not always needing that fuel. So, kind of touch on that a little bit more later. Cool. We got a good chunk of kale in here. We're gonna throw some olive oil. Usually, I don't know, that much. It's hard to measure these things. So remember, we have that mango juice at the bottom. So we kind of want to get that absorbed into the leaves as well. So we're gonna get our hands nice down and dirty into this kale, kind of tossing it around, and we're literally just squeezing that kale. All right, doing our best not to mush up the mango too much. Kind of want to keep relatively solid chunks, but usually kind of just like to sweep the kale through the bottom to get some of that mango juice in there as well. A better plan maybe have separated the mango juice from the mangoes, but if you were here the other week, I'm not a big fan of dishes, so the least amount of dishes we can make, I think, the better. Okay, so kale is feeling significantly more tender. We'll give that a little toss. You can see how much that has downsized in our bowl here. Great, beautiful. So it's got a nice little sheen to it on all of our kale, just like my hands. So we'll get a little rinse off of that. Got a few more minutes on the salmon, which is going to be perfect timing. We're going to finish up our kale with some seasoning. We've got some salt. I'm going to toss that in there. Salty kale, I know, it works, I promise. All right, we're going to take our oregano and get a little sprinkle on there. I know it seems weird to season a salad, but I'm telling you, it's gonna make all the difference. Once you do that, you're gonna be like, why have I never done this before? We got some cumin in there as well. And then if you want to, you can sprinkle some honey in there. I'm gonna put a little bit more honey in the dressing, which I'll kind of mix in later. So that's great. I forgot some of this. We're gonna throw some cabbage and carrots in there at the same time. We'll give this another mix up. So I know some of you you've either mistakenly one too many times grabbed some cabbage instead of lettuce, but next time maybe purposely grab some cabbage. A little bit different than lettuce, a little different nutrient profile, certainly a little different texture. But I actually much prefer lettuce. I like the crispy crunchiness of it. I think it's refreshing. And lettuce to me just seems very much like water. And any restaurant you go to seems to be just iceberg lettuce. So I like to diversify my own cooking, getting cabbage. I would really prefer the red cabbage, just because I think it's more beautiful, and but the grocery store that we shop at doesn't have red cabbage, unfortunately. So color is always a good way to go. We've got plenty of greens in here. We've got the yellow from the mango. If you got other vegetables that you want to throw in here, other fruit you can throw in there as well. Just be cautious of the kind of fruit that you put in there. Mangoes do have quite a high sugar content, which is our carbs. So while we don't have any potatoes or rice or quinoa or anything like that, that is kind of a traditional carb, do remember that a fruit does have sugar, which are carbs. And so got to be mindful of those as you're kind of creating your dish. So we've got a couple seconds. I'm gonna grab a plate we'll talk about plating this up here. Remember that your oven safe pan is going to be very hot when it comes out. I know this sounds very silly to point out, but get a guard, and every time I pull this out, I like to leave. I'll show you. It's like, don't burn your face. Oh yeah, what a beautiful little guy. So I think that we're well cooked through. Again, if you can really tell, I highly doubt you can see this, but you can see the color all the way through. The salmon there is uniformed, right? There's no hot spots in the middle, or cold spots technically, I suppose, in this situation. But we're gonna let this rest. I know it has something to do with well-prepared meat. That's a little too chefy for myself, but I know that's important to let your steaks, let your salmon, let your fillets rest. So that's what we're gonna do. Turn the oven off. I like to just pop this guy right in the handle to remind me that it's very hot, because I will almost certainly try to grab that with my bare hand. It's happened way too many times. But cool, while that is getting prepped or getting rested, it's taking a little nap, we're gonna finish this up. Salad is pretty much ready to go. We're just gonna make the dressing. All right, so we're gonna have a little bowl. We've got some mayonnaise. I always have something to say about everything, but mayonnaise, very important. If you do use mayonnaise, is the type of oil or whatever that is going into that mayonnaise. Try to get a spoon. So we're gonna take about a 1/4 cup, which is almost the rest of this. But just like everything else, take a look at the ingredients. So this is coconut oil in this specific one. But if you look at your mayonnaise and it has sunflower or safflower oil, those are very highly processed oils that are very inflammatory. So anything that is with extra virgin olive oil or avocado oil or expeller cold pressed coconut oil can be better options for you than those lesser oils. All right, so anything kind of hydrogenated, processed, would recommend avoiding. Those are kind of those bad fats that we talk about. So a little bit of mayonnaise never really hurt anyone. And again, my goal here is not to tell you the most optimum way to eat. It is always to just kind of take whatever you're doing just one step up, right? So if none of this is what you eat normally, right, just take a small step. Throw in some fish, some salmon once a week and see how that does for you. If you love your mayonnaise, just find one that's even a little bit better for you. It's not about dramatic changes. It's about one step at a time. Adapt to that, get used to it, take another step, all right? Baby steps is what we're here for. All right, so mayonnaise in there. We'll throw some honey in there for a little sweetness. Again, don't go crazy on this because that is just pure sugar. Again, carbs, carbs, carbs on that one. We've got that. Where's my lime? Lost my other half of lime. We've got that going in there as well. And that is a real quick. Wow, that was a really poor lime. I might have to get another one. I will have to taste that here in a minute because I don't think that was enough. And then we're going to throw in a little bit of chili powder to kind of finish this up. I think the recipe itself said chipotle powder. I'm not going to go buy chipotle powder for one dish, so we're going to use chili powder, pretty much the same thing. And then we're going to give that a little mix through. So this is going to be hopefully not super thick. If I had more lime, it might be a little thinner, but it should be a little bit creamy. It should hold its form for like a second or so. So this is going to go on the fish, and you can put this through the salad a little bit as well. Just be careful. I'm a little hesitant to give that suggestion to put this through your salad. But I want to be real with you all, and I know that everybody really enjoys their dressing on their salad. We talked about many times about how going for an oil-based dressing is better than going for your kind of creamy dressings like your Caesars, your French, Thousand Island, anything like that, all very thick. So this is a relatively thick. That's about the consistency we want though. But again, I want to kind of speak truth, be real with you all. When you use these dressings, I really recommend going lighter than you think you would on the dressing. So again, if you're right now using a 4th cup on 4 leaves, like, you know, don't necessarily need to change overnight, but maybe we use, you know, a little bit less, and just every time we do it, just a little bit less. So, you know, going from 100 to 0 is going to be a really dramatic change. Going from 100 to 99 to 98 to 97, etc., down to 0 is going to feel like a lot less dramatic change. So that's my advice for you. 1% better every day. Okay? So we're going to plate this up. We're going to get our salmon. Beautiful. I'm so proud of this salmon. It's very, very well done. So we're going to put that on there. We're going to get our dressing. I guess I use my hands for everything else. Why not? So when we are talking about kind of portioning our plate here, we want to get close to 50% of that fresh produce here. Little chef's touch right there. Last little bit. Wham. And then we've got our dressing, and I'm just going to pour a little bit of this over that salmon just to give it a nice little chefy pizzazz, a little run over on the side. And for me, I'm not going to put this specifically on the salad here. The runoff from the salmon will be really nice. Just kind of pull the leaves through. Because you'd be surprised, you know, I used to really like a lot of dressing on my salad as well. Then I started dialing back, kind of experimenting a little bit, and this is kind of going back to seasoning your salad is going to make a lot of difference. Because I believe that the main reason we put a lot of dressing into that salad is because we don't like the taste of leaves, right? But put some spices in there, put a little flavoring in there before you dress it, and then see how much dressing you need. Because you don't want to overpower this deliciousness. But that is pretty much in terms of the prep. That was a great time. So there is your salmon with your salad. I don't remember exactly what this recipe is actually called, but a nice little aioli. I know it's literally just mayonnaise and lime juice, and that's pretty much what aioli is. That's what you have there. Definitely recommend giving this a try. I'm going to kind of open the floor up for some questions here. And I'll kind of ran through a lot really quickly. I'm kind of all over the place. It's kind of my MO here. But in terms specifically of the topic of this presentation, when we talk about fueling for the less active or aiming to try to lose weight, this is kind of what you want your plate to look like. I know you're like, you know, you feel weird that there's not any kind of traditional carbs on your plate. And by no means do I want to say carbs are the bad guy at this point. The only thing I have to say about that is that carbs have a specific purpose, just like everything else on this plate, in your fridge, in your kitchen, in the grocery store. Everything has a specific purpose, its time, its place. Carbs are best used when you're preparing for exercise. So if we're not doing a whole lot of exercise, a whole lot of, you know, targeted movement, we don't need all of that fuel. All right. So if you think about like a campfire, which I hope that, you know, most of you have had the opportunity to sit around a campfire. You know, if you want to keep that fire going, you're not just going to take a big old pile of logs and just slap it down on the fire. That's going to put that fire out. So feeding that fire one stick, one log at a time, let it burn through, add another one. That's how your body works, right? We want to give it enough food to kind of get it through what the activity is and then refeed it, okay? Putting a whole bunch on at one time is not always the best plan, all right? Caveats of this, of course, if you're competing in an Ironman tomorrow, you eat all those carbs. Get you 6 bowls of pasta, whatever you need, because you're going to use that following day. But on the regular, most of us don't run a marathon, don't do an Ironman every week, and our input, our fuel should reflect that, all right? So, you know, using carbs as a fuel source for your performance, for your activity. using your protein as a recovery for your day. That's why we kind of typically say 3 to 4 ounces of your protein is going to be good as a recovery for the daily activity, your kind of habits of daily living. For me, I personally is a little bit more active. I taught class today, so a little bit chunkier meat, kind of a little bit more protein, a little bit more rebuilding of that. And then the fun thing about produce is that, this is almost negligible in terms of calories and carbs, proteins, everything like that, minus the mango, we talked about that. But vegetables specifically, you load that plate up with vegetables. The difference that's going to make in that overall profile is in terms of your macronutrients, pretty negligible. But in terms of micronutrients, just a world of help. Your vitamins, your minerals, all that. Get as many vegetables as you can. And since they are made of mass, they will fill your stomach. So you will you can eat your heart out. You can eat this whole bowl of salad if you wanted to, but your satiation is going to be higher. You're going to be a little bit more satisfied in terms of what you kind of chewed on, but the effects calorically will be a lot less than eating, the same amount of rice or potatoes or anything like that. So I know that's a really long-winded last thing, but that's got to make sure you cover the basis of the topic. So great. Emma, what kind of questions do we have in the chat? Or folks, if you have any questions, throw them my way.
Matt, so thank you for that wonderful presentation. That looks beautiful, first of all.
Absolutely, thank you. Really proud of the sample.
Second, I loved your chat about the carbs. I think that's a really interesting fact that a lot of people, I really didn't even think about is, how much the mango can contribute can do the same as carbs. Like the sugars are the same thing essentially, just more broken down at that point.
Yep.
So I think that's an awesome point. My question to you is, how do you pick mangoes? Like, how do you know how to pick a good mango?
Oh.
If you're like new to this, it's like an avocado. How do you know to pick the right mango?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. I didn't think about. So it's a practice I've learned. But typically, you kind of have to have a little bit of foresight in when you're looking to eat this mango. So just like an avocado, a little bit more green means like I'm gonna eat this later in the week. So mangoes are pretty much all determined on the firmness. So I wish I had a second mango to kind of show you, but the firmer it is, the longer you're gonna have to wait for it. There's going to be a certain point where it is where you kind of just push your thumb through it. That one might be a little too old, unless you're eating that, for the juice that afternoon before you even get out of the grocery store. Maybe skip that one. But it's weird, because I'll go in the grocery store and I kind of grope a few mangoes. So you should probably also wash your mangoes. But the firmer it is, like I'll hold it for later in the week, and then you kind of have to compare around the ones in the bin and kind of feel which one maybe is the most unfirm. I don't know what the opposite of that is, but most squishy, I guess.
All right, noted. Thank you, Matt.
Yeah.
We do have a question in the chat box. They say, can you summarize the recommended daily macro breakdowns for someone who is less active, moderately active, and very active?
Yeah, so I'll do my best on this, and this comes with everybody's favorite caveat, it depends. So if we are to take the USDA recommended daily intake of 2,000 calories, which is by no means a recommendation for any specific individual, but it's just a standard for comparison. So 2,000 calories is your daily bread, right? How much you need for that day. That, in my opinion, based on who we're talking about, is someone that is less to moderately active. All right, somewhere kind of in that window. For the most part, your macro breakdown for the whole day is going to be pretty much as much protein as you can get in, all right, followed by about 20 to 30% fat, and the remaining of that is carbs, right? So in this situation, if I were just to eyeball this, this salmon, we're looking at 27 grams of protein, right? Which is going to put you somewhere in 100, I don't know, 80 to 100 grams of, 80 to 100 calories, right? And then the salad with the mango and everything, it's hard to eyeball right now, but I would say, for this specific meal, again, there's a good bit of fat in that salmon as well. And in terms of carbs, we're probably somewhere in the realm of 30% maybe of those carbs, just because of the mango. Like I said, don't underestimate the intake of your fruits in terms of carbs. And to kind of summarize the last few weeks, those are the ratios that we're kind of working with. So kind of moderately active individual is usually going to be 45 to 55% carbs, and then your fats and your proteins kind of split with the remaining, okay? And then for the very active individuals, I would probably push up to 60% carbs, and then kind of fats and proteins split equally, maybe a little bit more protein, a little less fat. But I do want to kind of be very specific in kind of debunking some of these myths about, low fat diets or low carb diets or, whatever else is out there. Everything is in moderation. There's so much research constantly being studied and researched and vetted that, this is a bit of a game. We're all kind of just going through this the best that we can. Just like anything in life, the secret is paying attention. So pay attention to what you're eating. Pay attention to how your body responds to that. Pay attention to how your performance, how that is affected by what you fuel, right? If you're having a tough day, if you got a brain fog, if you're not feeling great, look back at what you ate, right? How hydrated are you? What does your sleep look like? What does your stress levels look like? All those things play so much more of a factor than we think. It's not so much as like, oh, I had a piece of cake, that's why I feel terrible. No, because you stayed up till 2 a.m. celebrating your son's birthday. Like that's what it was. It wasn't the cake. I don't want to turn you away from celebrating these events. I don't want to turn you away from eating your favorite foods. But how do those things fit into your better lifestyle? Again, not your perfect lifestyle, but your 1% better lifestyle, right? So be very mindful, pay attention to what you're eating, pay attention to how it affects you. Make those healthier swaps when you can. Healthier in the fact of, take away the canola, the hydrated oil, get some olive oil, get some coconut oil, go for that wild caught salmon when you can, trade a piece of fish for, your McDonald's burger, or whatever it may be. One thing today, try to make that one step forward. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that was perfect. Thank you, Matt.
Yeah.
I do have a question about protein.
Yeah.
So we did have somebody in the chat box talking about how they've been told to up their protein over carb to build muscle, but still fuel their workouts.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there's this notion of overconsumption of protein to a certain extent. So I was wondering what your thoughts were on that.
Yeah, so I think I've done a lot of research in this in terms of protein intake, because I've heard of a lot of different theories, different things, and my personal opinion, and I am not a certified nutritionist in any capacity, not a registered dietitian, but I've been a strength athlete for most of my adult life, and in my anecdotal and fellow competitors' lives, this is not advice. You can't get enough protein. I think that there's always extremes. We hear before that, like, you can't drink too much water, right? And then they're like, oh, water poisoning. It's like, okay, that's like if you're drinking a swimming pool of water, like, in a day. That's probably a little overkill. If you're eating the whole cow, in a week, that's probably a little bit too much. But I mean, if you're eating, usually we kind of base it based on your body weight. So usually we say somewhere from like a half to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, kind of as your reference point. There's been times in my life that I've eaten 3-4 times that recommendation, and I'm fine. Same thing with other strength athletes. Like, it's a lot of protein. Because the thing is, like, you only have 3 sources of calories. You have your protein, you have your carbs, and you have your fats. So, all those things are going to work in some kind of ratio. And again, in my research and my anecdotal life, protein, getting as much of that protein is not going to affect you. There are pieces of that we need to, you can't just, eat like 15 pounds of beef this weekend. If you are significantly upping your protein intake, we have to check in with our fiber, we have to check in with our water intake, because all those things are connected. Your digestive system is going to need those other adjustments for you to continue, properly doing your business. So check in with those things, right? Just like anything else, so like we talked about before, we'll not make dramatic changes overnight, right? Just a little bit more, adapt to it, feel good with it, and then a little bit more. But yeah, so protein, I'll touch on protein supplements here in just a second, but getting as much of protein as you can in a meal, not necessarily in a meal, but across your daily intake, I would start with that, because that is often the hardest part for people. But then you kind of follow that up with your healthy fats, and then kind of basing your carbs on the fuel that you need for your performance. Protein supplements, just real quick on that. If you are having the most difficult time getting extra protein, extra meat, there was a point in my life that I was eating 4,500 calories a day, and I just spent the entire day in the kitchen. So trust me, eating enough is hard sometimes. So sometimes you need that extra help. We can have a separate kind of conversation about what protein supplements are right for me, but they definitely have their place. It's a lot easier to drink your calories than to eat them, which I'm sure some of us are very aware of. So whole foods when you can, supplements when you can't, everything in balance. If I were to sum that in one nice, pretty package.
Thank you, Matt. That was also very great and informative. And I'll have a side conversation about your 4,500 calorie diet.
It was a time.
We have one more question here, and then we'll let you go. Is there any? Can you eat the skin of the salmon when it's cooked?
Yes. So I actually really like the skin of salmon, because it tends to be a little bit kind of crispy, and so you can't hear it, but there you go. Yeah, you can hear it. So it tends to be a little bit crispy. For me, it's like a texture thing. I think it's really nice. It's really pleasant. My wife does not eat the skin, so I eat her skin. In terms of nutritional content, I'm not gonna lie to you, I don't really know. I know growing up, my parents would always say that the skin has the most nutrients, whether that be your fish, your potato, or your apple, or whatever it is. They didn't get me on oranges. They tried to tell me the skin was most nutritious. I said, no ma'am, I'm not eating the skin of an orange. But in terms of fish, I'm for it. I don't know really what nutritional content the skin has, if there's anything additional on it. I just like it, so I eat it.
Thank you. I think that is all the questions here.
All right. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you all today. Of course, if you have any other questions, you can certainly shoot them over to me after this is done. If you enjoyed this, every Friday morning, we have a very similar setup for Friday Morning Fuel, 9 a.m. Eastern Time, here on Teams, also live on Instagram. And if you like this event, you want to see more like it, please let us know. Your feedback goes a long, long way, and everything that we do here at EXOS is to serve you all, our members. So we are open for any and all suggestions that you have. But until next time, I've been Coach Matt. This has been EXOS Eats. Get out there and upgrade your life. See ya.